here's a treat. And it's been quite a while since I've had former governor of New York, David Patterson, on with me. I mean, we took a hiatus, but when you come back strong. And that's what I intend to do with my friend, Governor David Patterson. Once a governor, always a governor, Governor Patterson, right?
That's what I've been told.
And that's a good thing because, that there is nothing wrong with that. That sounds great. And, well, I want to start out with what went down a couple of days ago now in the subway. And, it was devastating news because I ride that train, and I've been on that train, that particular train, many times. And I ride the train all the time. Now I have my wife to ride with me when I used to go by myself. And, when you go underground, you feel as though you're at people's mercy. When they close those doors, you never know what's going to happen. What do you make out of what happened the other day, that incident on that train?
I think that particular incident illustrates exactly where we are in terms of crime fighting in the subway system itself and the overall mood and feelings of the 4 million people who ride the train every day. So if you just look at it statistically, which I think too often some of the agencies are engaging in, yes, 4 million people rode the subway that day, and one of them got shot, the one who basically brought it on himself. So, yes, that's a very low number. It's not likely to happen anytime soon. Nothing like this has happened in a long time. But if you were one of the people on that train, or if you, as you have, Ralph, rode that particular train, or
yes,
if you rode any subway train, you had to shiver when you heard this particular scenario where an armed passenger walks through the gate. He doesn't jump over the turnstile even. He walks through the gate, gets on the train, and immediately threatens another passenger who he doesn't even know. The two of them get into a fight. At a certain point in the fight, the perpetrator, we'll call him, takes his gun out, and the person who was attacked gets the gun away from him and shoots him about 3 times. And of course, I don't know why it took 24 hours for the DA's office to say we're not going to charge him because those are elements of self-defense. Of course, they're elements of self-defense. And then I was shocked to hear some of the news reporters, the subway reporters for, different TV stations and radio stations saying it's not clear if charges will be brought against the second victim. That was the victim of the shooting. He was the one that brought the gun to the dance in the first place. Of course he's going to be charged. The reason he isn't charged yet is because he's in the hospital. So, this is quite an unnerving situation for anyone to hear. And I have an issue that, I ride the subway. It's a lot easier for me. And,
yes,
I've been riding the subway since I was 17. But at least once a week, someone on the subway says, "Why are you riding the subway? You shouldn't be riding the subway." And I take it as a compliment.
Yeah, hey, it's the lifeblood of New York, Governor. It's the easiest way to get from point A to point B. There's no easier way. There's no cheaper way, and there's no easier way. So, here we are, the normal person wants to get from uptown to downtown, and he's faced with that dilemma. Well, I take my life into my hands. I just heard what happened. They had the video. You see everything these days because everything is on video. And I ran it on the program the other night. I had some calls. Did that really happen? Oh, because I have listeners elsewhere. They said, did that really happen? Is that what New York is all about? When you get on the train, you take your life into your hands? And I said, well, you can make of it what you want to make of it. But that's exactly what went down. And, to hear those shots fired, Governor Patterson, is a devastating thing. Pop, pop, pop. Not a firecracker, but a gunshot. That's devastating.
Yes, absolutely.
And, you're trapped down there. That's the thing about being, when those doors close, that's it. You're stuck with whomever is in that train. What's the solution? More cops? What do we do?
Well, I think the solution is more cops. And the reason is because the cops are trained. And they're trained for at least 7 months before they go down there. Now, what the city is saying, and I think the city, Mayor Adams and the head of the transit police, Michael Kemper, what they're saying is they will not be just National Guard people in the subway. We will be training them. But if they train them, it's going to take the same amount of time it takes to train the police. Then they say many of them are already police officers. Fine. Then they obviously can come right in and be of help. But I think the overtime that the mayor is asking the state for would cover the need and the number of police officers that we could bring in at this point. I don't think that the National Guard training system, everything about the National Guard is totally different than the way the police department operates, and I think it would invite us into another situation where a poor National Guard's person could be put in a position where they feel they have to fire the weapon, but a police officer wouldn't have fired it. And so I am for just expanding the role of the police in that situation.
I'm with you on that one. I don't want those guys. As much as I admire those guys in many ways, I don't want them. That's not their forte. I think that's the cops' job, and they have to do their jobs, and they have to be down there in greater numbers, in my opinion. If a cop is walking on the platform, that's one thing. But you have to situate these cops inside the car so they can, come to the rescue in a situation like occurred.
Yes. The only problem is once you have a police officer on a car, it's only in that car that he can make a difference. Whereas if the officers are, hanging around the stations, able to intervene between the stops, you have greater coverage.
All right. Well, Governor Patterson is with me, David Patterson. Let's go to the migrant crisis, which it is. It is a crisis. I hear Mayor Adams between a rock and a hard place. For everything he does right, he's criticized for doing two things wrong. Is he handling this enormous problem, which is a national problem, not just in this sanctuary city, which is New York? It's a national problem. Is he handling it correctly in your mind? Is he doing a good job? What do you grade Mayor Adams as of right now concerning this crisis?
I think that there are two ways that we can appraise Mayor Adams. I think he's done the right thing by making it clear that New York City and now Chicago, Denver, Philadelphia, other cities are following suit, can't have 200,000 new people come into the area and accommodate them. And you also have a sort of unfortunate kind of like a catch-22 because many of the migrants who are coming in are getting services and opportunities that are greater than the homeless people who were on the streets before them or people with mental health issues. And so the migrants are coming in and some of them getting jobs and getting these opportunities. I mean, this is New York, and the Statue of Liberty does say, bring your dreams to me, but it didn't say bring 200,000 dreams to me in 6 months. And I think that's where Mayor Adams has really voiced his displeasure about this. Now, on all of this, I give him an A+. I really do. Here's
Wow.
where I think there's a little bit of a problem, which is that Mayor Adams, and again, I think he was being honest when he did this, he was critical of the federal government for doing this. Governor Hochul, on the other hand, did not address that issue. So Governor Hochul is right now being held in very high esteem in Washington, which he should be. But I'm just saying that it's kind of clear that there's been some retaliation for Mayor Adams speaking that way. And sometimes for elected officials, it's better to call someone up on the phone and yell at them one-to-one than to have a press conference. And I think that he put himself in that position by being public before he was private. It's a distinction, but I think this is why he's not exactly getting a pat on the back, and he's got 38% public approval rating, which I think is way below the effort that he's waged. And I'd really like to know who could have come in at this time as he did, be faced with the same situation, and not have a different result.
Well, you make a wonderful point about getting someone behind closed doors, having a one-to-one conversation and saying, get this done, get that done, and also get that done. That's what you need to do sometimes. I think he lacks in that capacity. I don't.
Think
he's comfortable with he's comfortable with the people that he feels, some kind of kinship toward. But I think he's a little wary of others. Would you agree with that?
I think so, and he's actually a very decent person and very gregarious and open, and if you're looking for a dinner companion, you won't find one better than him. But I think that in some ways that the mayor was surprised that he became mayor. In other words, he ran, he thought he was the best person, he ran a good campaign. But then, even President Trump, when he won in 2016, he went and sat down with his wife for a couple of hours before he actually came out and accepted, the vote of the people. But he said afterward, Harvard, I had to convince myself that I'd really won. And I kept saying I was going to win, but now I've won. And I think, a lot of elected officials, you'd be surprised, who, when they actually win, they can't believe it. Like, oh, well, now what am I supposed to do?
Well, former President Trump didn't want to show it at the time, but you are so right about that. He was as shocked as anyone. I was shocked. I was sitting there saying, are you kidding? This can't be happening. But I think he was more shocked than anybody.
And he didn't say anything at the time, but, when he talked about that period, months later, it was clear he was shaking his head.
No doubt. No doubt, because, you can see through that smirk of his, and you can see what he's really thinking sometimes. And I picked that up anyway. But
yeah, now I know.
But now, March
17th will be the 16th anniversary of me sitting in a room and getting a phone call to the effect that in an hour you're going to be governor. And so I didn't have a campaign.
Really? This is your anniversary?
Yeah, the 16 years ago, it was a Monday, early afternoon. I get this phone call, which would change my life forever. And what I would say is I was quite impressed to myself that I went and did the things that I needed to do, and I did them right away. When I looked back on it, I wondered how I was able to do it because, you're just going from a role of anonymity and absolutely no influence on anything to becoming the governor of one of the, 5 biggest states in the union. And there were certainly times that came up that I kind of wished maybe I hadn't answered the phone when they called.
Oh, come on. Is that true?
No, I don't think so. But,
because I was happy when Governor. Not really, I can't say that. When Governor Spitzer did a swan song, I said, "Wow, Governor David Patterson is coming in." I was I didn't care for Governor Spitzer. You don't have to agree with me. I didn't care for him. I thought he was very narcissistic.
This isn't.
I know. He's public enemy number one, or he was anyway. People have forgotten though. People's memories are short.
Yeah,
but let's yes. While we're on President Trump for a bit. Here we are, President Trump approaching 80 years old. I'm 63, I'm no spring chicken, but I'm not 80, and I'm not running for president. President Biden, 81 years old, I believe. I think that's what he is. He's in. Now, can we not do better? A point I bring up very often, you tell me how you stand. Can we not do better than having these two people that have been on the planet for 8 decades as the two candidates in November, should nothing happen and everything proceed the way it's proceeding? That's what we're going to get. How do you feel about that?
I kind of feel that I have known people who were 80, 85, and they did very well. They weren't running the 100-yard dash, but they were, pretty in charge of what goes on. I think one of the problems, if you're going to be president and you're going to be that age, you are being monitored daily. So it's not like you can go and sit back and, just take a couple of weeks off and recharge your battery. But, so I thought in President Trump's first term that he pretty much got what he wanted to get done, or in some situations he was blocked from getting things done by Congress. But it wasn't his acuity or, just his ability. With President Biden, it at times does appear to lack for memory of a certain type of issue, and seems a little, out of it at certain points. But as he ends his first or his last term, whichever it turns out to be, I think he's been able to, put his agenda forth. And we have a very large percentage of people in our society now who are 70, 75, 80 years old. We have, I think it's 40,000 people in this country who are 100 years old. And just 10 or 15 years ago it was 20,000. So, I'm more worried by performance and ability than, who fell down the stairs last week and that kind of thing.
There's a young 80 and an older 80.
Yeah, exactly.
They say he's in the throes of dementia. Do you buy into that he's in the middle to late stages of dementia?
He certainly at times, does not display the kind of command that you would want your president to have. And then, but what he did, which I thought was really pretty clever, is he goes out, he gives a State of the Union address, which had to be one of the most angry, vengeful.
This is my next question. I'm glad you touched on it. Go ahead.
Yeah, attacking the Republicans, attacking the Supreme Court, attacking everyone, and they beat up on him, after that. And actually, even though he was very much alert and forceful in the speech was not appreciated by the public. It was something like 55-45. They didn't like his speech. But what they all may have missed is that was exactly the design of the speech, to get people not to like what he said, but not to really notice how he was saying it. Because nobody said he looked feeble. Nobody said he looked like he was going to fall asleep any minute. And so I thought, just from a political point of view, in other words, from what they were planning and what they got, I thought they won, even by losing in terms of people thought that he was, antagonistic and acrimonious and calling people out in the middle of the speech. But that gets you to be thought of as a president who can be pretty tough when they need to be. And I think that his campaign and his supporters needed to see him do that. Now, what he's got to do is take some of this rhetoric that he was talking about and make it real. And that's where, he may run into some problems.
No, he certainly came on strong. And there's no middle ground with that malady, because my mother suffers. And either she's out of it or she's all revved up. She's all jacked up, as they say. So I think, there's no middle ground. You don't see him just talking in, the niceties that you need. You're supposed to unify the country in that situation, not push them further apart. And I think I thought it was a failure.
I totally agree with you. But what I'm saying is, I think his people were looking for him to be criticized for that, as opposed to what they didn't want, which was people saying, look at this guy, 5 more minutes and he's keeled over. You see what I'm saying? Now he's at a place that he can try to come back and be a unifier, and it may or may not be accepted. But I thought it was just internally, and I'm not talking Republican, Democrat here. I'm talking about man who's in office for 3 years. He's going into his last year, and everybody says that he suffers from Alzheimer's. And we want to project a different image. I thought they achieved their goal. Now, as time goes on, if he does that every week, they won't even hold an election. They'll just throw him out in July.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, former Governor David Patterson with me. If you have 5 minutes, we could have some fun. Do you?
Yeah, sure.
How about those Mets and Yankees? Spring training. God. I was outside today. It was beautiful, spring in the air. And you know what I thought of first, Governor Patterson? Baseball. And what it means to New Yorkers and everybody else. It's just a beautiful, beautiful sport. Maybe not quite as good as it once was. But how do we'll start with the Yankees, the rivals across town. What do you think? What's going on with Cole and Judge and all those characters?
Well, I am married to a former Yankee fan who watches the Mets games with me. She's wonderful. Mm-hmm. But she said the other day that she's not going to be watching these Mets games with me. The Mets always find a way to mess things up. She's going back to watching the Yankees. So I dropped by a few hours later to tell her that the Yankees' best pitcher, Garrett Cole, is going on the injured list, and he has to have a second MRI, which is always dangerous. And the Yankees' best player, maybe the best player in baseball, Aaron Judge, had something they call spring training hurt up or something, and he's not going to play for at least another week. And I said, I just want you to know that the injury list for the Mets, none of them are hurt. The question is, can any of them play? But the Yankees have a little problem. Oh my God, I'm forgetting his name. They just announced their opening day pitcher, and what's his Strom? I got it wrong. It's something like that. But no. Yeah.
He turned it down. That Hispanic pitcher. I can't remember his name offhand either.
Maybe his first name is Nelson, something like that.
Yes, something like that.
So anyway, so the Yankees, start a little out of the box, but with the moves that they made in the off season, they have got to be considered to be along with the Houston Astros and a couple of other teams to be the strongest teams in the American League. So I think Yankee fans who watched an 82 and 80 season last year have a lot to cheer for and to think about as the months go forward. As for the Mets,
well, it's Stroman. It just came to me. He turned down the opening day assignment.
Yeah.
They wanted him to open the season because of Cole's injury, and he said no. What do you make of that? Yeah. These modern day players, they tell the manager, they tell the front office what's going to happen.
I don't get it. I would think I'm Marcus Stroman. I'm either the number 2 or number 3 pitcher. The number 1 pitcher is out. Secretly, I want to be the number 1 pitcher. I want that ball. I want to pitch that
too.
day. And that's a little. It makes you wonder about a person that feels that way. As for the Mets, their starting opening pitcher will be Jose Quintana, and their ace is Zenga. And what was the old I guess it was the Milwaukee Braves back in the 50s, Spawn and Sane and 2 days of rain. That was their pitching plan.
Yes,
hoping
Milwaukee
a
Braves.
couple of games rained out, and this is the first year, Ralph, that I am not as familiar with the team as I usually am at this point, and I don't even know what their goal is for this year, and I don't understand why it's such a big deal that you can't go and get Montgomery or the guy who won the Cy Young Award, Aaron, whatever his name is.
Him.
The two pitchers who are still free agents. J.D. Martinez is out there. The Mets don't want to sign him. They don't want a right-handed power hitter in the lineup. It's almost like they are half forfeiting part of the season, which is, at this point in my life, not something that I'm particularly interested in buying into.
Yeah, we don't have much time. We have to see a championship. It's been since 1986. They made the World Series in 2015, got knocked off by a better team, I thought, a more well-rounded team. That's what the Mets never got. You have to be a little bit better rounded, like the Tampa Rays, the Kansas City Royals of 2015. That's a real baseball team. I think we're seeing the Wilpons show their. I think Cohen is doing a good Wilpon imitation. When he doesn't, when he said he's going to write off, he didn't say this exactly, Governor Patterson, but he hinted at it. Well, we're kind of not a rebuilding phase because he'd get bombarded with a lot of bad press, but he kind of hinted that 2024 he was giving his team a pass of some kind.
Right, and if there were some, really valued minor league players, and apparently they did pick up some valued minor league players, and they think that they'll be starting or they'll be pitching. But I don't think the Mets farm system really has any great pitching prospects. So let's say if this was 1996, when they had Bill Pulsipher and Jason Isringhausen and Paul Wilson, and they had these pitchers who they thought were going to be really outstanding, or if it was back when Zach Wheeler and the pitchers from 2011, 2012, if they wanted to sit back those seasons and just let these guys, learn how to pitch in the major leagues, Matt Harvey and Jake DeGrom, I could see that. But I don't know that taking a year off is going to produce any talent that isn't there in the first place.
You're right. Good observation, because I couldn't said it better, because I don't see anything in the offing that's so wonderful. And this guy has more money than God, and he wants to spend, but does he spend it wisely? That's the question that Hamlet
Ralph,
asked a long time ago. No, he didn't. He never knew Cohen.
A little aside, in 2018, I went to a lunch. It was a lunch that a friend of mine had, and he had these people over, and Steve Cohen was there, and I sat next to Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a great time talking to him. I forgot that he was on the board of the Mets. So a lot of this is my fault. If I had gotten explained to Steve what he needs to do when he buys the team, we'd be in a lot better shape now. But
you could have grilled him. You could have had his ear for a few minutes.
We talked about giving pledges. We talked about everything except sports. I can't believe I blew this opportunity. By the way, if you're listening, Steve, please give me a ring because I still have some suggestions.
Oh, yeah, right. And he listens to my program regularly. He takes my advice. Yeah, sure he does. But, and the thing is with him is that he's a baseball fan, and that I like. I like that aspect of his personality.
Oh,
I don't know. I think he's a rookie. He's a rookie.
I loved when they had fan appreciation and people came to the stadium to pick up these gifts from the team. And who shows up but Steve Cohen and his wife? And they were out there hanging out with the fans. I mean, he means well, and he appears to be a very good person. But I don't know if this was the team that I would sit back. Like I was saying, 2011, 2012, Matt Harvey was on the team. Zach Wheeler came up. They would call them Batman and Robin. Jacob deGrom probably wound up to be better than both of them as the third starter. And so if they wanted to, make a few trades, get rid of some people and pick up some younger people, which is what they did at the trade deadline last year, it made more sense then than to do it now because who is the big pitching star on the Mets? If it's Zenga, maybe, okay, and that's it.
You got it. I was talking to the host. I don't know if you know who Richard Neer is, or you remember that name.
Oh, sure, from the Fan.
Yes, I was talking to him this morning, and we were talking in length about the 1969 Mets and that pitching staff. Does pitching mean as much in present-day baseball as it did? Because if you look at that team back in '69, Governor, they were anemic at the plate. They had Cleon Jones and Tommy Agee and nobody else that really hit above 240, but they had a stellar pitching staff. Does it mean as much in present-day baseball?
I don't think pitching can hold teams to the level that they were held back at that particular time. Remember, when Roger Maris broke Babe Ruth's home runs for a single season in baseball. That was in 1961. Excuse me. But the commissioner's office in the ensuing few years went all out to lower the capacity of teams to score runs. And so by 64, 65, you start to have these low-scoring years, and then you had people like Bob Gibson and Tom Seaver pitching to ERAs under 2. And I think the real baseball fans can always enjoy a pitching duel, but to keep a lot of people in the seats, there's got to be – I read an article once that said there's got to be some There's got to be some offense. And right now, I think it would be very hard for a team to try to rely totally on pitching because now the designated hitter is in both leagues, and now you've got the way you break the tie in extra innings, which is unfathomable, but that's what they use now. And so I think the offensive side of the plate is such that it would be very hard for you to have a pitching staff and rely on Tom Seaver and Jerry Kuzman and Gary Gentry and Nolan Ryan, Tug McGraw, and all those people from '69.
Well, hey, listen, I want to thank you for a 20-minute interview that turned into a 40-minute interview because you're so good. That's the reason. You know, some people I can't wait to get off the phone, but with you it could go on for an hour and a half. To be honest with you, sometimes the guests that you think are going to be so fantastic, they turn out to be duds, but not in your case, that's for sure. All right.
Bob,
well, thank you again, Governor Pat. Yes, go ahead.
And I love listening when you're on other people's shows.
Yeah. I had that obsession. That was my obsession, the caller. You know, the Mike and the Mad Dog and the Lynn Samuels and the Bob Grants. I pestered them constantly. Anyway, I want to thank you. I appreciate it.
Great to talk to you.
Oh, great to talk to you, and thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.